Okay, welcome everyone as we learn the Mishna Yomis for after two very difficult blot on Matzi Shabbos of Sukkot, as we wish everyone a good Moed on the Shpizin of Yosef, and we are sponsored by the Fisher family, Leili Nishmas Basi Bas Rabbi, Shlomo ben Avraham Alevi, Perel Bas Ruvain, responsibly Nishmas Dav ben Chaim, Lefu Shalem for Yomis ben Chai, sorry, Yaakov ben Bas Yaleh, for the schus of Avraham ben Yam ben Shmamak Yudis and family, responsored by Yod Klugman and family. Also, Lefu Shalem for Victor Aryeh ben Rivka, Hinda Bas Chai, sorry, Yitzchak ben Tzion ben Dusha, Rivka Bas Shiraleah, Chana Bas Shashabina, that they should have a Moshe Meir ben Esther Fadl, Meir ben Chaya Sarah, they should have a Refuah Shalema b'Seich Shar Chayla Yisrael. Now, Mishnah Hay tells us that HaShulchan, the table in the Kodesh, it went from east to west, Orkai Asara, its length was 10 tvachim, Virach by Chamisha, and its width was 5 tvachim. The lechem apanim, the loaves, they were orkai asara, their length was 10, virach by chamisha, and they had a width of 5. And remember, there's 2 stacks, 6 and 6. Nois and orkai, they placed their length of 10 tvachim, keneged rach by shel shulchan, against the width of the shulchan. Now, so it was 10 tvachim, and the width of the shulchan was only 5 tvachim. However, they folded up each loaf 2.5 tvachim on one side and 2.5 tvachim on the other side. So, therefore, its bottom was only 5 tvachim, and it sat along the width of the shulchan, which was 5 tvachim. So nice and arkai, they put the length keneged roich by shel shulchan, along the width of the shulchan. The kaifel tvachayim umechza mikan, they folded it up 2.5 on one side. Utvachim emechza mikan, and 2.5 on the other side. So from the 10, now you subtract 5. So then the bottom of it was 5 sitting along the width of the shulchan. Nimtza orkai, its length memale kol roich by shel shulchan. It filled the full width of the shulchan. Div Rabbi Yehuda. Reb Meir says he held that the shulchan was longer than 10 tvachim. HaShulchan orkai shneim aser, its length was 12. Virach by shisha, and its width was 6. If its width was 6, then if you put the length of the loaf, which was 10, along its width, you only have to subtract 4. So lechem apanim orkai asara virach by chamisha. Noisein orkai keneged rach by shel shulchan. So you put the length of 10 along the width of the shulchan, which was 6. So now you only had to bend it 2 tvachim on each side. The kaifel tvachayim mikan or tvachayim mikan, 2 tefach on either side. Now remember that the width of each one was 5. There were 2 stacks, so one stack was 5, the other stack was 5. But it was 12, so you have 2 tvachim extra. Mikayfel tvachim mikan and tvachayim mikan, utvachayim revach be'emtza. There was 2 tvachim in between the 2 stacks, kedei she'teya ruach menasheves beineim, so that the wind should circulate between them. Abishal says, no, in those 2 tvachim, they put the 2 spoonfuls of frankincense that were brought. Shama yunaisnin shnei bazichei levaina shalechem apanim. There they put the 2 spoonfuls of frankincense that were offered from the showbread. Amrulai, they said to him, how could you say that it was on the side? You put on the stacks, on the pile, the levain, so that it went on top of the bread, not along the side. Amalahen, he says, no, the word al also means alongside. That in the arrangement of the Shvatim, V'olav Mata Menashe, alongside was Mata Menashe, the tribe of Menashe. So al could mean alongside and not on top of. Now, when they stacked, we said that there was a stack of 6 loaves on one side and 6 loaves on the other side. The one loaf sat directly on the table. But then the other 5 loaves didn't go right on top of the loaf underneath it, but they had 4 shelves on the sides, 2 and 2, on the sides of the shulchan, that had notches, and in those notches sat rods. The rods were half-shaped rods, so that the ear should go through. Under each of the challahs, except for the topmost challah, there were 3 rods. So one sat on the table, and of the 5, 4 of them had 3 rods underneath them. So that's 4 times 3 is 12. The upmost challah, that only it sat on it, had only 2 rods. So there was 14 rods on either side, a total of 28 rods. Let's see this in the Mishnah. Arba snifin shel zav hayusham. There were 4 shelves. There were 4 like the frame of a shelf. This is where the rods went from one side to the other side over the shulchan. So there were 2 for one stack and 2 for the other stack. Arba snifin shel zav hayusham. There were 4 supports there of gold. Mefitzalim mirashein, and they had notches in them. Shoyesomchin bahem, and the bread was held in place by them, because on each side the bread leaned on them. Shnayim l'seder zeh, 2 of these supports on one side, Ushnayim l'seder zeh, and 2 on the other side. Ve'esim u'shmoinim konim, and there were 28 rods, 14 for each side. Kachatzi konachol, each one was a half a tube. It was like a half a tube, and it was open so that the ear should circulate. Arba asur l'seder zeh, 14 for one side. Va'arba asur l'seder zeh. Now, as I explained, the first loaf on either side sat directly on the table. Then there were 3 rods, and the next one. 3 rods and the next one. 3 rods and the next one. 3 rods and the next one. That's 4 times 3 is 12. For the uppermost challah, it only needed 2 rods because it was only its pressure that went on it. So that's 12 plus 2 is 14 on each side. Now, the putting in of the rods in place, or the removal of the rod, which is an Isser Shabbos, they didn't do on Shabbos. So lo seder konim, not the arranging of the rods, v'lo netilasan, or their removal, doicha es Shabbos, did it supersede the Shabbos. Ela nichnas me'erev Shabbos, Friday they came, v'shoimtan, they took out the rods, v'noisnan la'orkan shel shulchan, and they arranged it on the bottom of the table from east to west along the length of the shulchan. And then when they put on the new bread, they took on the new bread without the rods, and then on Motzei Shabbos they inserted in the rods. Now, just because we said along the length, we want to make it clear, Kol HaKelim she'ayu b'mikdash, all the utensils in the mikdash, orkan la'orkan shel bayis, were arranged to the length of the house. So the length of the house went from east to west. So the kelim, the shulchan, for example, went from east to west. We want to thank you all for joining us. What a privilege, and wish you a good Moed.